Good day everyone, I am Sir Aris, your MAPE teacher. So let us start our lesson. Our topic for today is all about Arts, Quarter 1, Module 1, Western Classical Arts Tradition, Painting, Sculpture, and Architecture of Prehistoric Classical and Medieval Art. But before that, I have some reminders in using your modules. Number 1. Use the module with care. Do not put unnecessary marks on any part of the module. Use a separate sheet of paper in answering the exercises. Kaya kumuha kayo ng long pad, dun ilalagay ang sagot. Number 2. Don't forget to answer what I know before moving on to the other activities included in the module. Number 3. Read the instruction carefully before doing each task. Number 4. Observe honesty and integrity in doing the task and checking your answers. 5. Finish the task at hand before proceeding to the next. Number 6. Return this module to your teacher, facilitator once you are through with it. If you encounter any difficulty in answering the task in this module, do not hesitate to consult your teacher or facilitator. Always bear in mind that you are not alone. We hope that through this material, you will experience meaningful learning and gain deep understanding of the relevant competencies. You can do it. So before we start our lesson, please prepare your long pad, ball pen, and I will give you 5 minutes to answer these activities. Okay, paki-portrait muna po ang cellphone. What I know, pre-assessment from the choices below. Write the letters corresponding the pictures on the eras where they should belong. Number 1, prehistoric. Number 2, Egyptian. Number 3, Greek. Number 4, Roman. Number 5, Byzantine. 6, Romanesque. 7, Gothic. Dito po kayo mamimili sa A, Cave of Lascaux. B, Callus Crater. C, Enthroned. D, Hieroglyphics. E, Venus of Willendorf. F, Rose Window. G, the Morgan Leaf. Then last, letter H, Aphrodite. Okay, pakisagutan na po. Bigyan ko kayo ng 5 minutes. Pakipost muna ang video para masagutan. Okay, time's up. Let us check your activity. Number 1, A, 2B, 3C, 4D, 5E, 6F, then last, G. Okay, next activity. What's in? Identify the following arts media. Write P if the image you see is a painting, S if it's sculpture, and A if architecture. Okay, time's up. Let us check your answer. Number 1, P. 2, S. The last number, letter A. The next, our topic is prehistoric era. Prehistoric includes all human existence before the emergence of writing. The primitive people art is of interest not only to the art historians, but also to archaeologists and anthropologists, for whom the art is only one clue, along with fossils, pollens, and other finds to an understanding of early human life and culture. Paintings from the prehistoric era. Their paintings were found inside the caves, which may have been their way of communicating with each other. It might also be for religious or ceremonial purposes. These paintings may be more an artifact of the archaeological evidence than a true picture of humans' first created art. Prehistoric drawings of animals were usually correct in proportion. This is an image from Treasures of the World 1961 CCP Library, Cave of Lascaux. Ito ay isang halimbawa ng mga sign of communication po ng mga tao noon. Yan, through their drawings or painting. Kung ano yung nakikita nila, yun po yung kanilang maiguguhit. Malabo silang magguhit ng eroplano dito kasi wala pa namang eroplano. Kahit barel. Kung ano yung nakikita nila sa kapaligiran nila, yun yung mga maaari nilang mai-drawing. Next, prehistoric sculptures. Materials used in sculptures vary according to region and locality. Archaeologists believe that their sculpture is a result of natural erosion and not of human artistry. Frequently, carving may have mythological or religious significance. It is carved from limestones with excessively heavy breast and abdomen used as charm to ensure fertility. Venus Willendorf. This image from Treasure of the World, 1961 CCP Library. Next, a sculpture of a lady with the hood. It is a fragmentary ivory figurine from the Upper Paleolithic era that realistically represent the human face and hairstyle. Ayan po yung sa may tao na yan, o kung ano itsura ng mga tao noon. Yan. It is made of ivory. So ano po, saan po ba nakukuha ivory? Sa mga mammoth, sa mga elephant tusk. Ayan, doon nakukuha. Prehistoric architecture. Man has developed a form of architecture based on megalith, or a big rock, from the Greek word lithos, or stone, and megas, big. This architecture is made of huge stone blocks, which were probably intended for burial. Megalithic monuments have always ignited man's imagination. It provided plenty of legends and superstition. During this era, stones and rock were associated with divinity. There are three main types of megalith stones. And what are those? Let us see. Number 1, menhir, a huge stone standing vertically on the ground, usually standing in the middle of the field or arranged in rows. There is the sample in the picture. Next, dolmens. The word dolmen originated from the expression tolmen, which means stone table. These structures are in a form of table consisting of two huge standing stones supporting a horizontal giant stone. It is believed that it served as a grave or as an altar. Next, number 3, cromlech, a Brittonic word where crom means bent or curve, and lek, which means lab or flagstones. Literally, it is a circle of standing stones. Stonehenge, best preserved megalithic site in Europe, a group of stones arranged in concentric circles with a large external circle of triliths. Greek word meaning three stones. Two internal circles built in a similar manner and the altar-shaped stone in the center. It is a temple where rituals were held. The structure and the movement of the sun in the sky has a relationship in terms of identifying the change of the season, which helped the primitive men on their rituals and on their agricultural practices. Next, ancient Egypt. It is known for stylized portrayals of people and for objects that were used for religious and ceremonial purposes. Paintings from ancient Egypt. The purpose of Egyptian paintings is to make the deceased afterlife place pleasant. With this in mind, themes include journey to the underworld, introducing the deceased to the gods of the underworld by their protective deities. We have the sample picture of a paintings from sarcophagus of Tutankhamen. It emphasizes the importance of life after death and the preservation of the knowledge of the past. Most paintings were highly stylized and symbolic and shows profile view of an animal or a person. The main colors used were red, black, blue, gold, and green. It is derived from mineral pigments that can withstand strong sunlight without fading. The paintings of the walls on the tomb show events of the life of the king while he was still on earth and the scenes he expected to encounter in the underworld after his death. Next, sculptures from the Egyptian era. Symbolic elements were widely used such as forms, hieroglyphics, relative size, location, materials, colors, actions, and gestures. Their tombs required the most extensive use of sculpture. The most common material used for sculptures are wood, ivory, and stones. These are the characteristics of the sculptures. Number 1. Symbolisms were heavily used to represent the gods. They were represented as composite creatures with animal heads on human bodies. Number 2. Relief composition were arranged in horizontal lines to record an event or represent an action. Number 3. Most of the time, the gods were shown larger than humans, the kings larger than their followers, and the dead larger than the living. Number 4. Empty space were filled with figures or hieroglyphics. Number 5. All individual components were all brought to the plane of representation and laid out like writing. This is an example of Egyptian architecture. The first picture is Queen Nefertiti painted limestone. Then the next, the Pharaoh Menkaure and his queen. It is made with stone. This architectural style was developed during the pre-dynastic period 4000 BC. Characteristic of Egyptian architecture. Number 1. The structure has thick sloping walls with few openings to obtain stability. Number 2. The exterior and interior walls along with columns and piers were covered with hieroglyphics and pictorial frescoes and carvings painted in brilliant colors. Number 3. Ornamentations were symbolic including scarab or sacred beetle, solar disk, and vulture. Common motifs: palm leaves, buds, flowers of lotus, and papyrus plants. Then last, number 4. Temples were aligned with astronomically significant events like solstice, comes from the Latin word sol meaning sun, and stitium meaning stoppage. As the sun appears to stand still on the first day of winter, and equinox, a time or date when day and night are of equal length, with precise measurements required in determining the moment of that particular event. Next, Pyramids of Giza. It is the most substantial ancient structure of the world. The 3 pyramids are the funerary structures of the 3 kings of the 4th dynasty, namely Khufu or Cheops, whom the Great Pyramid was attributed to Kaffa or Chephren, whom the pyramid next to the Great Pyramid is attributed, and the smallest is attributed to Menkaure or Mycerinus. These pyramids were made highly confusing and with many tunnels to create confusion for grave robbers. Next example architecture of Egyptian is Egyptian temples. It is built to serve as places of residence for the gods. They also serve as key centers for economic activity. Ancient temples were made of perishable material like wood, reed matting, and mud brick. Their walls were covered with scenes that were carved onto the stone. then brightly painted. Pharaoh fighting in the battles and performing rituals with the gods were the scenes found on the walls. Next, mastaba. It is a type of Egyptian tomb in the form of a flat roofed, rectangular structure with outward sloping sides. It was made of mud bricks or stones. Next, paintings from classical Greek era. Paintings during the classical era were most commonly found in vases, panels, and tomb. It depicts natural figures with dynamic compositions. Most of the subjects were battle scenes, mythological figures, and everyday scenes. It reveals a grasp of linear perspective and naturalist representation. Then, these are the most common methods of Greek painting. Number 1, fresco. This method of painting is water-based pigments on a freshly applied plaster, usually on a wall surfaces. Colors are made with grind powder pigments in pure water. Dry and set with the plaster to become a permanent part of the wall. This method is ideal for murals, durable, and has a matte style. Number 2, encaustic. It is developed to use by Greek ship builders who used the hot wax to fill the cracks of the ship. Soon, pigments were added. So what is the difference between fresco and encaustic? Fresco is made of water base and encaustic is made of hot wax. Vase painting, Kirch style, also referred to as Kirch vases. It is red figured pottery named after the place where it was found. Shapes commonly found are number 1, Pelike, number 2, Lecanis, number 3, Levis Gamikos, the number 4, Crater. Most common motifs were mostly seen from the life of woman, mythological beings that were popular among the people of the Black Sea, or a scene from mythical story or event. Next, panel painting. There are paintings on flat panels of wood. It can be either a small, single piece, or several panels joined together. Most of the panel paintings no longer exist because of its organic composition. Next, tomb wall painting. Tomb or wall painting is very popular during the classical period. It uses the method of fresco, either tempera or water-based, or encaustic wax. It was a sharp, flatly outlined style of painting because it uses water-based materials. Very few samples survive. Tomb of the Diver. Then, the image was painted using a true fresco technique, with a limestone mortar depicts a symposium scene on the wall. In tomb paintings, artists rely on the shade and use of paint to create depth and life-like feeling. Next, Greek sculpture. Early Greek sculptures were tense and stiff. Their bodies were hidden within folding robes. After 3 centuries of experiments, Greek sculptures had finally evolved and showed all the points of human anatomy and proportion. One of the most popular style of the Greek sculpture was the Hellenistic style. Hellenistics denotes a preference in sculpture for more elaborated patterns, mannered arrangement of figure and groups, and an emphasis on the representation of movement for dramatic effects. This is the sample. Myron the Discubulus. Then Doric, Ionic, Corinthian. This is a example of their architecture. Greek architecture. Temples consisted of central shrine or room in an aisle surrounded by rows of columns. These buildings were designed in one of 3 architectural styles or orders. Example is the Parthenon. The greatest classical temple ingeniously engineered to correct an optical illusion. The columns were slightly contorted, swollen at the center and leaning inward to correct what would otherwise have been an impression of deadness and top heaviness. Next, paintings from the Romantic era. Most of the paintings in this era were copied or imitated from Hellenic Greek paintings. Fresco technique was used in brightly colored backgrounds. Division of the wall into multiple rectangular areas, or what we call the tic-tac-toe design, multi-point perspective, and a trope-mill oil effect. Roman paintings have a wide variety of subjects: animals, everyday life, still life, mythological subjects, portraits, and landscapes. The development of landscape painting is the main innovation of Roman painting from Greek painting. Then this is their innovation: mosaic. It is an art process where an image is created using an assemblage of small pieces of colored glass, stones, or other materials. This technique used for decorative art or interior decoration. The full image is a Roman floor mosaic in the house of Fan Pompey, dated 100 BC. The whole mosaic depicts the battle between the armies of Alexander the Great and Darius III of Persia. This image is the head of Alexander image from Treasures of the World, 1961 CCP Library. Okay, next, this is a fresco painting, and it was believed to depict ceremonial rites, either marriage or an initiation of a woman in a mystery cult. Next, Roman sculpture. Most Roman sculptures are made of monumental terracotta. They did not attempt to compete with the freestanding Greek works of history or mythology, but rather they produced reliefs in the great Roman triumphal columns with continuous narrative reliefs around. The Portonacio sarcophagus between 180 to 190 BCE, Museo Nazionale Romano. This is used for the burial of Roman general involved in the campaign of Marcus Aurelius, the best known and most elaborate of all sarcophagus. It is a box-like funeral receptacle for a dead body. Comes from a Greek word sarx, meaning flesh, and pagain, meaning to eat. It depicts battle scene between the Romans and Germans. It is carved in marble. Next, sarcophagus from Cerveteri, 520 BCE, seen in Museo Nazionale di Villa Gila, Rome. Made of terracotta, length 6'7", a husband and wife are shown reclining comfortably as if they were on a couch. Next, Roman architecture. They built sturdy stone structures both for use and to perpetuate their glory. The emperors erected huge halls and arenas for public games, baths, and processions. They built them of gigantic arches of stone, bricks, and concrete, or with barrel vaults. Next, paintings from the medieval era. Byzantine painting. The lively styles of paintings which had been invented in Greek and Rome live on in Byzantium, but this time for Christian subjects. By the 11th century, the Greek and Oriental styles seemed to blend together in magnificent, imposing images which adorned the churches in large and small forms. Next example, the court of Empress Theodora. It is made of mosaic. Theodora was an ancient queen with dark eyes and hair with fierce expression. Next, Byzantine sculptures. The dominant themes in Byzantine sculptures are the religious, everyday life scenes, and motifs from nature. Animals were used as symbols, like dove, deer, peafowl, while some had acrostic signs, form of writing in which taking the first letter, syllable, or word of different lines and putting them together, it can be read a message that contain a great theological significance. Next, Byzantine architecture. It has a lot in common with the early Christian architecture. Mosaic decoration was perfected by the Byzantines, as was the use of clerestory to bring light in from high windows. Byzantines' advancement in developing the dome created a new style in global architecture. Next, a Romanesque painting. The example of Romanesque painting is the Christ in Majesty. It is a painting from the Church of Saint Clemente, Tahul, Lerida, Spain. These are the largely placed mosaics on the walls of the churches that follow a strict frontal pose. It has a remarkable variety of artistic tradition such as modeling and treatment of faces and draperies that follow Byzantine convention, while the refreshingly decorative feeling comes from southern French styles. It also shows traces of Mozambique influence. True elongated oval faces, large staring eyes, and long noses. Figures against flat-colored bands and heavy outlining. Romanesque sculpture. The best example of Romanesque sculpture is the Last Judgment Timapnum. Romanesque sculpture. Some of the famous sculptural pieces are reliquaries, altar frontals, crucifixes, and devotional images. Small individual works of art were generally made of costly materials for royal and aristocratic patrons. These lightweight devotional images were usually carried in the processions both inside and outside the churches. Next, Romanesque architecture. The doorways of Romanesque churches are often grand sculpture portals. Wood or metal doors are surrounded by elaborated stone sculpture arranged in zones to fit architectural elements. This is the groin-vaulted crypt of Worcester Cathedral. Next, paintings from the Gothic era. Paintings have been confined in illumination of manuscript pages and the painting of frescoes on the walls of churches in cosmopolitan styles, elegant, mannered, and sophisticated. Subjects usually depict popular legends and love stories. Patterns like mild fleur or thousand flowers show influence which may have been due to the Crusades. Next, stained glass windows were created to transform the vast stone interiors with warm and glowing color and at the same time to instruct Christians in their faith. It is a rose window from the north transept. Next, Gothic sculpture have a greater freedom of style. They no longer lay closely against the wall, but began to project outward. Figures were given their own particular attitudes instead of being set into particular patterns and are more lively and realistic. Next and the last one, Gothic architecture. This design included two new devices, pointed arch which enabled builders to construct much higher ceiling vaults and stone vaulting borne on a network of stone ribs supported by piers and clustered pillars. This is the Cathedral of Chartres, also known as the Notre Dame Cathedral. It has a rich architecture and design, splendid stained glass windows, and thousands of sculpture figures. Okay, and that's all. Kung meron kayong tanong, i-message nyo lang ako para masagot ko yung mga katanungan ninyo. Wag na kayo dong magtanong dun sa may ating group chat kasi baka matabunan lang yung link natin. mahihirapan yung mga nahuli na mahanap yung link, lalo na at tamad pang mag-back read. Okay, pakihanda po uli ang ating long pad, ang ating ballpen. Kasi gagawa po uli tayo o magsasagot uli tayo ng activity. And this is the first activity. What's more? Activity. To know how much have you learned from the discussion about the early age, fill in the box with the characteristic and functions that would best describe the art in every era or period. Next, what I can do. If you were given a chance to design your dream house, how would you like it to be? Choose from the different architectures that we discussed and use it as your inspiration for your dream house. Explain the reason for choosing the style, that style. What are the distinct characteristics of that architectural design that will be visible in your own dream house? Bali dito ay magdodrawing kayo ng bahay ninyo at mamimili kayo ng design or architecture base dun sa ating napag-aralan. Ayan, mamili kayo doon kung ano. At yun yung idodrawing niyo. Kung ano yung napili niyo, yung style na yun, yun yung idodrawing niyo sa paggawa ng inyong dream house. Saan ba ito gagawin? Sa short bond paper. Then pakilagyan rin ng kulay. Next, last activity. Identify the term described in each statement. Choose the letter of the correct answer. A. Curved style. B. Fresco. C. Mosaic. D. Panel painting. E. Encaustic. And ayan na po yung sasagot ninyo. Ayan po yung sasagot ninyo dito sa 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Next, A. Medieval era. B. Byzantine. C. Ancient Egypt. D. Romantic era. And E. Classical Greek era. Then last, true or false. Write T if the statement is correct and F if it is not. Thank you for watching and for listening. Sana ay may natutunan kayo at sana magawa po ninyo yung inyong activities para, syempre, para masaya. Okay?